that's where I want to go next. So in your investments, would you only touch a subscription business now based on kind of what you said previously?
I would say, like, moving forward, I'm way more inclined. Like, if the numbers line up, then things make more sense. Sure, right? If the numbers line up, then potentially. But the reason why I love subscriptions is they are just the best. They're recession proof in a certain degree. They just give you so much time. I love traditional businesses, and if it's printing money, that's like one thing. But pretty much every business can have a subscription component. I would say that the majority of these subscriptions are caused by the majority of these subscription businesses that fail are caused by a very low understanding of your metrics and your numbers. Because realistically, if I have a business that has, let's say, 1,000 subscriptions at $100 a piece, it's like, okay, well, now I have $100,000 of expected capital every single month coming in, every single month. Counting churn, obviously, there's going to be some parts there, but even if I lose, like something massive happens, then I've got a lot of time to make decisions to scale up, scale down, and understand how to improve it or hurt it. Where now, if I'm acquiring a customer, let's talk from CAC, because that's probably the biggest thing. Customer acquisition cost is not going to get cheaper. It's only going to get more expensive. And as I look into 2026 and the rest of 2025, I want the highest lifetime value as possible. And that only comes from a subscription component or from a very high, like, consumable component that they're going to continue to eat a chunk of and eat a chunk of.
For sure. Can you just talk to some of the brands that you've seen that are maybe a bit funky in terms of what they sell on subscription? So obviously, everyone knows of skincare, toothpaste, whatever, consumable items. What else can people do if they're not in that kind of space?
I'm going to give you two examples of ones. I'm going to give you the OG Pier 1 imports. I'd say OG Pier 1 was the king and queen of subscription. It's something, I think it was like Pier 1 Club or something. I forget what it was called, and I think they still do this, where every product on their website is on sale. You go there right now, like every product on their website's on sale. It's like 20% off, 30% off, free shipping. The only way to get it is if you're part of their Pier 1 Club, which is, I think it's a microtransaction. It's like $6 a month. You're buying hundreds of dollars of furniture, right? And then you're going to spend $6 on a monthly subscription. And that is, like, if you have a traditional business, that's the easiest way of doing it. Adding some kind of VIP club, something kind of that, your apparel, it's like a really good way of doing it. So that's like a funky way of doing it. Now, another way, which as Barbell Apparel, if you guys listen to this, you guys are killer. They do a great job with this. They have it's similar, but they give them credit every month. So it's a heavier subscription. It's not a microtransaction. I think it's like $20 or $25 a month. And they give them in-store credit every month of the same value, if not more. So if you spend $20 a month on subscription, you get like $30 of in-store credit. And it's like, okay, hold on. Plus, like, priority shipping, plus, like, VIP customer service, early access to drops, free returns, all of these bullet points that come with it. And then you get in-store credit every month. So it's almost like they're guaranteeing themselves purchases by giving people this in-store credit, which, I would guess that, like, gift cards have nearly a 50% utilization rate. I don't know what their numbers are, but I guess it's probably not 100% utilization of that in-store credit. There's probably a couple of accounts in there sitting with probably $1,000 of in-store credit just, sitting. But those are some of the ones that, if you're not like a consumable brand, how it can be used.
For sure. And I know when we spoke previously, you said something that I didn't quite understand at the time anyway. Subscription offers help with acquisition and kind of acquiring customers on the front end. Can you
Yeah.
talk me through that? Because my mindset, retention, it's just LTV subscriptions, right? So like, how does it help on the front end?
Yeah, so I think that this comes down back to what I just said with the offer. So imagine you're going to buy, even if this is a consumable, let's imagine it is a consumable. Um, so let's say it's a subscription versus not, and they're the same price here. So first thing is, if you have a consumable brand, everyone does the same thing. Oh, I'm going to give subscription at 15% off. Do not do that. What you need to do is you need to raise your one-time purchase price by 15%. Do not lower your subscription price. Raise your one-time purchase price. You want to make the one-time purchase hard while making the subscription easy. So a good example of this is doing all of these things. Hey, if you're on our subscription, you get early access to new product releases. That's like the easiest one of a consumable. Let's say you're a drink, your makeup, your whatever, any kind of consumable, you have a new product release. Congratulations. If you're on subscription, you're now a VIP, which means you get access a day earlier, 7 days earlier, whatever you want to do it. That's the easiest way. Then acquisition, you can also give all of these other things like the free customer support, the returns and exchanges, all of these, I call it the VIP club benefits that you get for being a subscriber that actually can make your customer acquisition cost go down or stay the same. But like if you set up the offer correctly, it should go down, which now you've increased your LTV substantially. You've decreased your cost per acquiring customer, and you've made yourself a much healthier business because from a valuation standpoint, from like EBITDA, like in getting the most out of your company. Great thing about a subscription company is if you wanted to, you could pause all your advertising for a month or two and just rake in crazy cash, and then either buy equipment, become really profitable, take that to a possible full acquisition partner, and they'd be super happy with it.
Okay. Playing devil's advocate, what would you say to someone that would be kind of too scared to do what you just said? And it would just say, if I increase the price of my one-time offer, that's going to impact conversion rates. Some people don't want to be tied into a subscription and it's going to harm my business.
I hear that so many times. That is literally the number one first thing I always hear. I even tell people make subscription. This is Grayson #Grayson's hot take. Make subscription the default option, because most people have it on the page like, oh, we're afraid. Make it the default, and the way I would respond to that is do it, test it. There are always going to be unknown unknowns. You want as many unknown knowns as possible. So, IntelliGems is like, I don't know, $100 a month, $79 a month, something like that. Super cheap. A/B test it. Prove me wrong. If you prove me wrong, send me a screenshot. I'll say I'm wrong, but I have not been wrong to date of anyone who's implemented it correctly, that your LTV will be considerably higher. And it will, even if your customer acquisition cost goes up, the LTV will be much higher than the difference in CAC. So, and I've not been wrong on this period. So do it. Prove me wrong. I'd love to see it.
I like the confidence. On this point, if you've got like an existing brand that you're maybe having this conversation with, how do you recommend they kind of launch a subscription? Is it to new customers? Is it to use their old list? Or yeah, what would you say to methods of launching this?
Yeah, definitely to new customers. So, our goal is to get first-time customers to come back. So I recommend Skio, not just because I love them, but because they have an amazing software. And it's light years ahead of what Recharge, like their product roadmap is basically, what Recharge's product roadmap will be next year. So I love them and they do great work. But the easiest way of doing it is get it on your product pages, make it an option, soft launch like that, see what happens. My favorite subscription offer is, instead of doing a 20% off sale, which is pretty common, do 30% off your first month of the subscription, just the first month. And then you'll get a crazy high take rate. You'll get a lot of people come through, and very quickly you'll fill up that subscriber bucket, and you'll learn a lot from your cohort data to find out really quickly, is it worth it or is it not? And then you can do the same thing to returning customers. Don't do it to active returning customers because they're already buying your stuff. You don't want to give them a discount. So go to the customers who have not bought in a while, segment that in Klaviyo, and push over to those customers.
I want to talk now about platforms. You mentioned kind of Skio and why it was the best, I think, due to roadmap. Are there any other kind of reasons why? And yeah, how do you see maybe the cons or the downsides of going with some of the other players on the market?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a software. Like, if we want something that's like, it's just a software, it charges people every month. You know what I mean? It's not like a complicated software. Recharge is great. Like, I know I kind of joke about it. Recharge is great. Bold subscriptions is great. I tell people to use Skio just because it's really, I don't want to say it's cheap, but they put more on the fixed cost versus once you get up there, you'll save a lot of money. And they also have the best integrations from what I've seen with like email and SMS services with Facebook to be able to build really good segmentation. They also have some platforms that work really well for win back, like cancellation, swap your product instead of canceling. And that's why I think Skio is a total killer. The other softwares have this, but the customer service aspect, I think we all have the thing. I just want to talk to somebody when I'm having a problem. And I think Skio is like one of the few places that actually offers that,
Okay.
where if you have a problem, they can help you.
Okay. You touched on it there. Can we just talk to some of the messaging around the subscription offer that you've maybe just launched for a brand? And I
Yeah.
guess here, we've already talked about how to launch it, but maybe some more on that. Maybe how do we address churn? How do we try and get ahead
Yeah.
of that
You're getting
mispayment?
me so excited. You're getting me so excited, Jordan. Like, this is the stuff I love about. So there's three things. I'm gonna warn you. Here are your three things that are gonna happen, everybody. When you put subscription in your business, number one thing that's gonna happen. People are gonna complain. Be ready. I'm just just warning you. They're gonna complain. I've actually got this happen so much because we'll launch subscription. You'll get 4 messages to customer service, and people will think the world is exploding. Right? They'll say, "I never signed up for the subscription." It's okay. Like, this happens. It's just part of what we do.
So
Now,
this
so
is
be
people that
prepared
have
for that.
opted in but think they haven't, or is that another?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, there's going to be misclicks that happen. If you make it default, people are not going to be paying attention. There's going to be lots of things that happen. But the reality is, if you're going from 0 complaints, let's say 1 complaint to 5 complaints, you're going to say it's a 500% increase in complaints, but it's 5 people, right? Depending on your scale, whatever that looks like, it's 5 people. So customer feedback is super important, but take it with a grain of salt and then look at the numbers and make your decisions unemotionally. Make them off of what's best for your customer, but also make them off of what's really, really important for the business. And more often than not, what you'll find out is, yes, you may have a couple of customer complaints, but overall, the way of expressing customer sentiment is lifetime value. If lifetime value is up, your customers are happy. Like, that's the direct correlation. And you'll have a way higher LTV. So the way that you introduce this, let's say, and this is, I'm going to do this with a brand in the next couple of weeks. And I'll give you an example how we're going to do it. Number one step, product page. Add it as the default option to the product page. Again, test this. We're going to do it with Intelligence. Default option on the product page. Raise the one-time price by 15%. Make the subscription option come with all of these benefits, which cost you nothing, and make that the number one thing. So that's the first thing. Launch that, and then make sure you tag all of those customers inside of your Shopify backend so you can track that individual cohort of LTV. Super important here. Next, the next thing you're going to test is you're actually going to run an offer. You're going to run that first month is X% off, and you're going to tag all those customers. And what you're going to probably see is you're probably going to see that those customers are probably worth a little bit less because you just lowered the barrier to entry, worth less from an LTV perspective. But did the CAC, customer acquisition cost, get low enough that it made it better in the right direction? Like, as in, did you drop your CAC by $20, but you have $10 less LTV? Totally worth it then. Did you drop your CAC by $10 and you have $30 less LTV? Not worth it. And when I say LTV, I'm talking like a 12-month period. I know that we can go lifetime, but I'm talking like a 12-month period here. So the goal is to launch it, get it live, get some data in, and then immediately, as soon as you can, run the second test so you can start getting long tail cohorts. The problem with subscription is that anything you do, unlike a direct response offer, anything you do, you will not know for certain until those cohorts have ran their cycle. So I can run a test and I can say, okay, this is how month 1 was, but I can model it off of historical performance, but we'll have no idea how month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5 actually is until that time passes. So your goal, if you want to just absolutely kill it with your subscription offer, your goal is to generate positive contribution margin inside of a 90-day window. And I know that's controversial. Most people say, oh, I want to be first order profitable. But 90-day window allows you to scale to the maximum as possible. It's where you'll get the most likely line of credit from a manufacturer, from Amex Plum, from Ramp, from all these companies, where you'll be paying like less than 5% for 90-day terms, and you can probably scale your business 10x faster. So that was kind of like Grayson's implementation process,
It's very actionable. That second step where you say you're launching that kind of 30% off, is that to existing customers or is that to kind of new people on the front end?
So absolutely both. So
Okay.
run it on the front end, run it on your product page, and then you'll be able to run those numbers to say, hey, how much is this returning customer cohort worth, whether they had the subscription or not? And then how much is the first time customer cohort worth, whether they had a subscription or not? Because what you
Okay.
want to be, and that's why I tell people to raise their price instead of offering 15% off. Because what a lot of businesses will do is they'll just say, okay, 15% off if you have a subscription. And then they'll look at all of their returning customer cohorts, and everyone who would have bought the product anyway just comes back and buys it now that you just lowered all of your margins by 15%, which sucks. So that's why it's important to make sure that, the people you're impacting are going to be those first time customers.
Got it. Okay. What would you say to someone that, again, is playing devil's advocate here? Someone that says they don't, or they're nervous about doing this because they don't know about the data. They don't know how long to expect people to stay in the subscription. And after
Yep.
3 months, maybe they've got some data in. What do we know? Like, how do we know what the benchmarks are?
Yeah, I mean, start with what you know to be true. I think that that's like the reality is if you're a business, you have LTV data, unless you're like a brand new startup, right?
Hmm.
If you're a brand new startup, you should skip all of the hard part and just go subscription off the bat and then make that your baseline. But you have data. Like a lot of people, a lot of the conversations I have, I'm blown away because I am a certified freak in the sheets, as in Google Sheets. But it blows me away how much people don't know about their LTV data. I'm like, how are you even in business?
Yeah.
But you have this data. Use that as your baseline and say, well, for me to be profitable, I need to increase it by X, and let this be your experiment. Use Lifetimely, use Statless, use whatever. Get your LTV data of 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and say, for me to be profitable, I need to increase the LTV by this percentage. Then start your test and then get your months of cohort data. First month, you'll say it went up or it went down. If it went up, which I'm hoping it probably does, if it went up, then you'll say, great, I just got 5% closer to my goal out of 10%. Second month, it's probably going to get you a little bit closer. And the answer is that this is going to be a calculated risk, the same way launching something new in your ad account is a calculated risk, but it's almost always worth it.
Okay. Now let's assume we've kind of, we've got those LTV goals. We've launched subscription. We're getting closer to that LTV goal, but we're not quite there. We're now kind of trying to look at, the churn and decrease that. How would you deal with that or address that problem?
So churn is like interesting. Churn is probably the thing I think most customers deal with. So number one, back to why I said Scale is killer, because they have like these, offer people the ability to pause their subscription, swap it for another product, or have like, hey, stay for 1 month and we'll stay for another month and we'll give you 20% off. And then, because it's better to get a 20% off versus nothing. So first have those cancellation flows. Um, Second, there's another way of offering tier discounts for the longer you're on. So say you get to 6 months and you get 10% off. Say you get to a year, you get 20% off. Those are good ways. But it usually comes down to the product itself. And the number one reason for churn I see reported inside of our brands and I see inside of other brands is I have too much of the product. Usually the number one way. Whether, and this is self-reported, so whether that to be true or not is up to discussion, but that's usually self-reported. And it says, okay, well, that means we're sending him too much, right? And this is where things start to make sense from an LTV perspective, where you need to be able to offer that ability to pause, which will just solve you for right there instead of canceling. But to really take a hard look at your serving and your sample sizes, where it's like, hey, do they really need this much of XYZ product? Is this, especially when we talk about like moisturizer, skincare, obviously people are going to use more moisturizers in wintertime than they're going to use in summer because they're inside. There's heaters / air conditioners, which are going to remove moisture out of the air, say, depending on the climate where they are. But to be really, really in the line of what's causing your churn from a product standpoint. From a digital side, it usually comes down to like the pricing, the piece of this. And like I've talked about pricing a lot to brands. And I'll give you like an anecdotal example. If I have a $50 product, I would rather give it to somebody, and let's say we have $10, $20 cost of goods. I'd rather give it to somebody for $40 or $35 and know that they're going to stay around for a year versus giving it to them for $50 and know that they're only going to stick around for 3 months. And pricing plays a huge part of this, which is why you should do LTV price tests to find out how long people are going to stick around. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself the question, do I want the most value inside of that 90-day mark? Or am I good with getting more value over a longer period? Would I rather get, let's say, per customer, $200 of profit over 12 months? Or would I rather get $100 of profit over 90 days, but then there's nothing after that? You
And
know?
that depends on the funding situation of the brand, right?
It depends on the funding situation, your goals. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Are you trying to sell this as a lifestyle brand? Because personally, if you're in super growth mode, I'd rather have the $100 inside of 90 days because then I can
Mhm.
grow way faster. However, if I ever hit a back to like the stability side, as we are all experiencing the super tariffs right now, the stability side, that, okay, I've got 90 days of LTV, and then after that it's useless. So now it's like, if something happens, if I run out of product, if I'm affected, might get a shipment that's lost, if my ads stop working, if anything happens, then I'm kind of up shit's creek without a paddle. So
Yeah.
it's like, short-term investing versus long-term investing.
Okay. Back to the kind of churn point, how do you address that in your messaging? And are you using kind of email, SMS, etc. to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it becomes an education cycle and lifestyle cycle. When somebody's got the product, products are commoditized. I'm like, everyone's going to say, well, I've got the best product in the world, right? That's what they're going to say. The same way that we hear a lot of agency folks say, I have the best agency in the entire world, which, they probably do one thing better than anyone else. But you could have the best product in the world, but you need to sell the brand. Retention, once they've purchased and they're on a subscription, is a very different thing than retention when they're not on a subscription. When they're on a subscription, your goal is to keep them in love with the brand and the mission as much as possible. And that's it. When they're not on a subscription, it is to get them to be in love with the brand and the mission as much as possible, comma, also, here's our shop now, click to action, go buy another product. You know what I mean? Because you actually have to still sell them something if they're not on the subscription versus when they are, when your only goal is to keep them on the product subscription. So it's a very different game. And this might sound weird, but I've seen some brands where they don't even send them emails or texts because they're like, as long as we don't talk to them, they've ran tests where it's like, we don't talk to them at all, and they stay on the product. If we send them SMS and we send them emails, then it's top of mind, and then they're thinking about, oh, do I really need this? But it's testing, and for me, I found the most success from selling on the brand, keeping them in love with the product, the mission. If you're involved with charities, if you're involved with XYZ, this is where you can really come in and lower that churn by showing how bad everyone else is and how good you are. Like, you can send them a headline that's like, oh my gosh, did you see competitor X was just being sued because there's lead in their stuff? Don't actually do that, but like an example.
No, I get you. So you've actually kind of taken my next question off my plate, which was we have some clients who tell us to take all subscribers out of all email campaigns and flows because they do not want to message them to remind them that they're on subscription.
No way.
So
That's so
you've
funny.
covered that one. What I was going to say to that point, though, of like focusing on brand and kind of going heavy on that stuff, are you, as a footnote in those campaigns, saying like, if you've got too much stuff, pause here, or kind of messaging to that effect?
Yeah, I think so. I think that where we've from an email SMS standpoint, we've kind of stayed away from that because we've since it's part of the cancellation process, right? Where we make it so when someone has to cancel, they have to click the button. Well, why are you canceling, right? And then we'll see how this, just so everyone's aware who's listening. So if you have a subscription brand, that might change due to the one-click opt-in, one-click opt-out type of legislation that's happening. That might change, but as of right now, they have to give a reason and say, "Well, I have too much." It says, "Oh, you have too much? Well, why don't we just pause?" And then if you pause this month, not only are we going to pause you, we're going to, and then we have our downsell series. Not only are we going to pause you, and they say, well, I don't want that. Like, well, what if we pause you and we give you 50% off and we give you $20 in store credit? And they're like, oh, okay, well, I'll stick around then.
No, I like that. One question I did have on this is, so we worked with like a UK food delivery company. They had a phone sales team and they cold dialed, or I guess it's warm dialed, but everyone that churned, they rang them up. Do you do any kind of approaches like that that's not automated after the kind of churn?
Jordan, I love that you just said that. I'm going to tell you two quick stories. And so this goes to just upselling too. So you can, thank God for AI, but we can automate that now. We can automate these phone calls. But one of our best upsell series of all times was, we had a voicemail that would drop to customers. Hey,
Well,
Drop Cowboy, if you're listening to this, killer software. We had a voicemail that would drop to customers right after they bought a product. It was a rug, and the rug had a cleaning solution that would go with it. That was the upsell. And if people didn't take it, this is the voicemail they would get. It would say, hey James, I'm just packing up your order right here. I'm the CEO of the company. I saw it came through. I noticed that you didn't get this cleaning solution. I'd really recommend you should get it. I know it's $20 on our site. If you Here's a code I'd made just for you. It'll give it to you for $15, and I'll just throw it in the same package so you don't have to even pay for shipping. But you have to order it in the next 24 hours, or because I'm going to ship this out, so it's got to go in the same box. Anyway, I really appreciate your business. You're a first time customer. Thank you. Bye. Hang up. and it was an automated voicemail, and it was one of our best upsells of all time. It was like crazy take rate, right?
Mhm.
And when we talk about subscription, we really started racking our brain about this, especially to some of these brands. And I'm like, well, we've got some subscribers churning. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, what's the LTV value if they stick around? I'm like, well, over 12 months, it's like $200. And I'm like, okay, so what would it cost to get somebody on the phones? And like, well, what do you pay customer service? 15, $20 an hour. I'm like, okay, so how many people do you think they could call an hour? They're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, probably 60. I bet they could get a call a minute, because a lot of people are going to be not answering. So it's a call. And by the way, this is so crazy. If any of you guys, anyone listening, just a hack, if you're using a CRM that can send or receive text messages for your customer service, have them send a text right before they call that says, hey, I'm this person. I'm from this company. I'm going to give you a call in a second. Because when they call, if they're on an iPhone, it will display their name. It'll display this name
Wow.
from this company, because Apple Intelligence will read the text message and then display it on the phone, which they're way more likely to answer. And then call twice, because every time if it's they do not disturb on, it won't do it. So call twice. But anyway, yeah, absolutely. If you think about it, well, if I'm paying somebody $20 an hour
Yeah.
and they're dialing phones, and if they call, let's say, even 30 people an hour and they get one person to save, then they just pay that through that they just paid their entire salary, you know?
Yeah.
And it's people get so afraid of me when I say, let's do it. Like literally make that a process in customer service. Like, oh, it sounds so hard. I'm like, yes, it is. Just go do it though.
Do things that don't scale, right?
Oh my God. You do unsexy things so you can do sexy things later. You
Yeah.
know?
Just on that point, do you do any other kind of methods or strategies to kind of reactivate churned people after the fact?
Yeah, I love Gary Vee. I don't feel like we talk about how Gary Vaynerchuk is like one of the funniest slash perfect example of do things that do not scale, right? And go to your top 10. I say top 100, but if you're a small brand, go to your top 10 LTV customers and call them and send them not only like a $50, like a five, if they're a big customer, like a $500 gift card to them, call them, thank them, send them a $500 gift card for themselves, and then send them like 10 $50 gift cards to give to their friends. And because those people, like Taylor Holiday talked about the super sneezers, these
Yeah.
are the people that tell every single person about your brand and will be your best brand ambassador ever. And I say, do you want to know? And they're like, well, how much, what gift card should I give them? I'm say, tell me what your customer acquisition cost is. And they're like, $50, $50 gift card, because that's what you would pay to acquire a customer otherwise. Um, and it's just such a good way of getting it done quickly, you know?
Are you on that point? Are you doing anything to kind of get people to spread the word? So any subscriber referral schemes or anything like that?
Yeah, referrals are hard to scale. I mean, in my opinion, referrals are hard to scale. I think that practice I just talked about is something we actively do. Like that is probably one of the most scalable ones. Is that reward your best customers because they will tell everyone about it. And then obviously we use lots of use whatever loyalty slash referral softwares which are highly rated in Shopify. But that's definitely not one of my core competencies. Outside
Yeah.
of like the affiliate side, which is really popular on TikTok Shop right now.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about kind of subscription program best practices. How would you kind of make some of these changes to a subscription program that's already up and running?
Yeah, that's actually, if you told me who is my ideal brand to go work with right now, and like it would be a brand that has a subscription component.
Why?
Oh my gosh, because it's just so unoptimized. It's just like almost
Okay.
always so unoptimized. And it's like you already did all the groundwork. It's like you built the cake, you made the frosting, and you didn't slice it. And like that's where I always feel that when I look at it, because I'll go in here and say, hey, you've got 5 products and one of them has a way higher lifetime value. Why are you pushing these 3? And like, well, we don't know. It's like we don't know. Or it's just like those churn prevention techniques, or it's or having it checked by default. I have a brand that like we just random I did an audit for like 6-7 months ago, and like the biggest thing is like they have physical locations, and I'm going to help them with some other stuff, but they have physical locations and they're really big on digital. I said, I want you to go change your button to be checked by default and just trust me on this. Just trust me. They tested it, increased their LTV by like 600%. And it was like a no-brainer for me, but they brought the same things that you said I brought up earlier. Is they said, well, we tested it for a couple days and we only ran it for a couple days because we got a bunch of customer service complaints. I'm like, well, how many did you go from and how many did you go to? And they said, well, I don't remember, but I remember customer service being really upset. And we went back and looked at the data. They went from 3 complaints to 9 complaints. And customer service just reports, oh my gosh, it's a 300% increase in complaints, right? But it's like 6 people, you know?
Okay. While you were talking there, you just reminded me of something else, and that was kind of taking it back to launching a new subscription program. Would you start with one product, or would you start with kind of multiple products on that subscription?
If you've got multiple products, put it on all of them. You know, you want as much data as fast as possible. And most businesses, their top 3 SKUs make up 80% of their revenue. So it's like if you're really cautious about it and you really want to feel safe about it, do it on your 3rd most popular SKU. Right? That's what I
Okay.
would tell people to do. If you're really cautious about it, as long as it's not like an accessory to number 1, you know what I mean? That's the best way I would say to do it. Is test on your 3rd SKU, get confident in it, get your feet wet, and then come over there. You know.
Okay. Final question on subscription. Do you think there's like anything that I've missed that you would like to talk about, or yeah, kind of any high value stuff that we haven't covered?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that this isn't even like a miss. It's just probably like a summary of this. Get really down and dirty with your data. Like I know that this sounds as a marketer, you probably hear this all the time. Everyone hears this. We talk about the data, the data, the data, and it's became basically a buzzword at this point. But make a list of the stuff that's actually important and monitor that and nothing else. Because there's a wall of a million things you could possibly be looking at, but the reality is the only thing that matters is contribution margin and LTV, and then everything else is a breakdown of, and CAC, obviously customer acquisition cost. But I think in summary, when we talk about subscriptions, is that if you've got a business that has a product that's consumable in any way, shape, or form, or even a business that has durable goods that you could sell as a subscription with a microtransaction of like $199 to $299, you probably should do it. And I mean that because it's an absolute no brainer for me that I would do it in every
Yeah.
single business. The list of businesses that I've seen a subscription not work in, and the only time I haven't seen it work is when it either implemented poorly or it's a subscription case where the CAC got so high that it didn't make up for the difference in LTV. But that was due to like just bad offer and standpoint, and it just didn't make sense. So if you have a business
Okay.
as subscription, test it. You know, and I've got some great relationships over there. You can tell them that I sent you over, and they'll probably give you a couple 6-month discount or something like that. They'll help you out.
Nice. So I think that's the big takeaway, isn't it? Like any business, pretty much you can do a subscription with and go on over to Skio and start following some of the advice we just talked about.
Yes, I mean, like our struggle, and this is like I feel like the anxiety back to like the work life balance factor, right? The anxiety
Hmm.
factor that you will have as a founder to know that if the worst case scenario happens, shit hits the fan, you got to turn all of your ads off. That you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of recurring revenue coming in.
Hmm.
That you'll probably feel a lot better. You'll feel a lot better. You'll sleep better at night. You'll be able to make better decisions. It is very difficult to make decisions in a business. Like, and I know a lot of both agencies and a lot of businesses are going to experience it this year because it's the way that the economics are moving. Um,
Yeah.
you're going to experience a lot of financial discipline and a lot of financial stress. Give yourself one less thing to not worry about, right?
Hmm.
And don't waste your time, energy, and effort to doing something that's not worth it.
We know how hard it is to scale in ecom. That's why we're on a mission to make it easy. So check out some of our other videos just like this one and subscribe so you don't miss your next big growth opportunity.